Welcome to Hashtag Trending, the Weekend Edition. I'm your host, Jim Love. Passionate about data. That's how I'll describe my guest today. And that passion rubs off. And friends of the show will know that I, too, am absolutely passionate about data. But I'm not passionate about it as a problem to be admired. For me, data is more like air. You need to breathe it in. It energizes you. It's not work. It's exploration. It's discovery. And it's a path to an action. Now, all too many conversations about data go in two directions. There is the initial inspiring conversation. We talk about all the things we can do. And then we get started, and all too often we start to talk about what we can't do and why we can't do it and how much data we can reach or can't use and all that. I've come to call that admiring the problem. And then there are the passionate realists. We all know about the problems and issues and barriers, and we're still passionate about it. I think that will describe my guest today. My guest is Chandrasekhar Lalapet Srinivas Prasanna. And yes, I did practice to say that. I hope I sort of got it right. Affectionately known to his friends as Chandrasekhar LSP, or sometimes, if you know him well enough, just LSP. Chandrasekhar is the managing director of Canada for Zoho, and he has a unique vantage point, and I think a unique point of view on a lot of issues, and one of those is about data. And this show started with the two of us talking and saying we're both passionate about data. And like I said, I think you'll find out he's got the realism in the context that many don't have. Zoho has clients in Canada and around the world. And as much as I'll say, our discussion won't be a commercial for any product, but that hands-on experience of making this work with large and smaller companies alike keeps us in our discussions in the land of the real world. And although he brings his experience from large enterprises, that's good. Sometimes in the discussions about data, we ignore the realities of medium and small-sized companies who may not have the resources and the budgets that other enterprises have, but still need to understand, manage, and take action from their data. So ever since that point where we both looked at each other and said, we have to have this conversation, I've been looking forward to this. I hope you are too in the audience. Welcome to my guest. Welcome, Chandrasekhar. How you doing?
Jim, thank you very much. And thank you for that introduction. Passionate about data. I think I would probably say more passionate about insights than data.
Absolutely. I think you're right on that. Now, before we get started on data, I want to just give the audience a little bit of background on you. One of the most interesting things you have on your bio, and I'm going to copy it, is what you wanted to be when you grew up. Feel free to share that, but can we talk about what you're going to do until you grow up? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing currently.
Oh, well, yeah, interesting that you looked that up and you know what I wanted to be. You know enough secrets about me. I do currently manage Zoho Canada. What does manage mean? Everything in between, taking care of broken computers, broken mousers, all the way to taking customer escalations and some conversations with esteemed individuals like yourself. It's everything. And I started my career literally here in Zoho 23 summers ago. And I was a developer back then. And I was into product training and then product consulting. And here I am 23 years later with Zoho.
Yeah, and if people question that, there's an old story a friend of mine told me about when one of the Japanese manufacturers, I think it was Honda or Toyota, was starting up, and the president came in and swept the floor because nobody was doing it. Didn't order anybody, just swept the floor, and because it was a job that needs to be done. I think you've done every job in the organization. I think, including setting up this new headquarters in Cornwall and making sure that that's all running, and then traveling the country.
That is correct, Jim. Yes, it was my decision to push the boundaries. And then when we decided we need to have a headquarters in Canada, I pushed for Cornwall. Got a lot of good things going about it. A lot of people don't spend the time to understand this place. It has a lot of history, lots of history for people who are into it. And it's been a place where there's been civilizations for the longest along the southern border with the US. And as you can imagine, a lot of wars. Upper Canada Village, and a lot of Scottish migration back in the days. There's so much going on. And the beauty is you are 1 hour south of Ottawa, 1 hour west of Montreal, access to good airports, access to bilingual population. It's a very interesting place overall.
I remember when you were setting up, it was great. Now let's go back to our topic here. You talked about being passionate about data, and you made a good distinction. Tell us more about what your approach is.
More than the approach, I want to talk about how I actually got to be this passionate. What kind of happened that I kind of get so excited about data. Obviously, everybody gets excited about data and what it can lead you to, right? It's for a curious mind. I think the data warehouse is a gold mine, not a minefield. It's a gold mine. It can be a minefield depending on what you're trying to
Yeah.
do, but that's a conversation you're going to have. But I used to work in the telco space, and at some point, it was all about network metric, network performance. And then that's when you basically were literally, when you start looking at information from the network that you're drinking from the host, there's so much data and there's so much noise. How do you separate the noise to make sense out of what's happening? And then you get into things like financial network analysis, how trades are being done and the speed at which data flows and what is a good trade was a fraudulent trade. There's so much going on in there. Inherently, you get excited about the possibilities. And having worked in the telco space for a good 17 years and having done a lot of data related projects, when I came to the business side, like the CRMs and the marketing tools and stuff like that, uh, data comes in at a much, I would say, slower flow, but still there's a lot of noise, as you can imagine. Bad data, at least here, there's so much of human intervention when the data gets into the system, more fraught to be what you may call corrupted and bad data in the systems and so on. I see that data cleansing needs to be the first order of business for anybody who wants to get into data.
Yeah, what a great experience. If people haven't worked in telco, and I think we both have, a, a billing engine, people don't understand the volume of data until you're
Yeah.
actually
So,
dealing
yeah.
with things like billing that
Yeah.
has transactions from everywhere.
Yeah. Fascinating, really, absolutely fascinating. Again, the only place where we see those kind of applications now are coming in are the IoT applications, where there's so much of data. And then right now, the industry is at a point where they're looking at it purely from a monitoring perspective. But the minute they try to look at how to monetize these better, I think the amount of information that they want is going to be enormous. It's like this, right? Right now, you go to book a travel. Oh, you want a seat? You have to pay. You want to basically add a second luggage, you have to pay. So I think certain businesses, as they grow, as they try to thought data analysis, what's the airline industry doing today? They know
Yeah.
that a gem or LSP would pay for this. And this is analysis. This is just not some random decision that happened in vacuum and then they're imposing those. They have understood every aspect of their business that can be monetized. The more monetization can be tied to businesses, the more data analysis is likely to happen.
I'm going to call back to that telco experience again, because the other thing that happens is what you've talked about. You take your data in a telco, you've got to produce a bill and it's got to be right. So you don't have the
Oh, yeah.
luxury of whining about how accurate your data is. In the same way with an airline or hotels, you're producing bills from these things. You got to get it right. There's no time to complain about the accuracy.
Going back to telcos, it's just not billing for the usage, right? It's also, hey, what has been my downtime? What has been the SLA that's been associated with my service? And did I keep up to those SLAs? So those SLAs have to match up with the billing that you have been provided. And if there are any penalties that I, as a provider, have to pay because I did not meet the SLAs, things are going south. So there's so many points that have to connect and they have to be right. You better be right about this because any factual inaccuracies, that's it. You're going to be sued.
Oh yeah. So you came out of the telco space, all of that
Mhm,
behind you, and you referred to
mhm.
CRM as a little slower. How did you feel when you made the switch to be dealing with different types of data?
And you know what? In that side of the business, I would say everybody had data within their remit. People were inherently knowledgeable. I was working with IT directors, IT administrators, and everybody understood data inherently. It was a part of being in that role. You need to understand data. But when it comes to a system like CRM, typically what happens is people are using it to manage their contacts. People are like, what's the best time to call someone? They want to close the deal. They use it as a system of record, not knowing the gold mine that they're building for their organization. Just imagine a CRM that's run well in a company, and then you have 5 years worth of data. Just imagine the possibilities of that 5 years worth of decent data, and what kind of competitive advantage and what kind of pivots you can make based on just those insights this data can unlock for you.
Yeah. I think it's more common that people are just using it as a glorified address storage. That always frustrates me when I see how much potential there is for understanding, for leveraging that knowledge to serve your clients better and to get more clients and to increase revenue, to do all the things a business wants to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, that's where I think the industry is also shifting with the ability to kind of have the speeds and the storage capacities that we now have. Again, Jim, 15 years ago, a big data system was like called out to be the next best thing since sliced bread. And today, we are looking at just flowing more and more hardware and then storing as much as we want. And then the war is who can best process the data. It's not no longer how much data you can store, because clearly you can store infinite amount of data at this point in this day and age, right? You can get it at whatever price you want. You can easily do it. However, what's not happening yet is business is looking at it from a perspective of how do we apply context to the data? Because today, you and I have been around enough to talk about, I would call the hype around AI. You and I know AI has been around for the longest time. It's just that the consumer side of business is getting used to this, right? But be it legal or healthcare, we always had AI. AI was never out of fashion. AI has always been there. But what's important is in this hype that's going around AI and the usage of data, the large language model, what it lacks is context. It completely lacks the business context. Yes, it can process, it can inhale the data, it can come up and generate some nice little poem for you. It can take a 20-page document and compress it into a nice 2-page summary. But what? So this is all great for someone who's creating content, someone who's on the consumer side. But what does it do for my business? I have so much of 5 years. Let's say the classic example of a CRM with 5 years amount of 5 years worth of data. There is business context in there inherent to my business. Who was trying to understand it and who was trying to use AI in the context to give me insights that's very specific about my business, helping me to take decisions and take act. Because any insight or any data point that doesn't push me to an action, what's the consequence of that data? It's just a laborious process that doesn't do anything for me. What's the point in it?
Oh
So
yeah. And little known fact, I'm back to doing some consulting myself, and I was working a big system, and I had to ask the same question today. If we're not going to decide something or do something, why are we even bothering to collect it?
exactly, and not just collect it; they want to process it, right? And again, the challenge is also the rigor and the discipline that is required. The minute you get the data, to make it conducive for analysis, this is the biggest 80% of all your data analytics projects fail, because the first step of the process to clean the data, to make it conducive for analysis, is missed out. They just bring in whatever data. They think that systems can automatically have guardrails to clean the data and then give it to you in a conducive way for you to analyze. No, that's where the biggest 80% of projects fail, because you fail in curating and putting guardrails for the data that you bring in, right? A lot of people get very, I would say, skeptical about data because they don't go through this problem. They miss this rigorous process of having a guardrail and having governance on the data. Once
So
you
how do you
have it,
make that happen? How do you put that in place?
again, 5 years ago, my answer would have been very different because that was a very IT intensive process. You needed to have experts who would come that work with the business stakeholders and, and understand what is the right data for them and then go from there. But now, in the last 5 years, there is this movement like we had in reporting and analytics, Jim. You will remember back in the days, it was crystal reports. That was business intelligence, right? Quote unquote. And then in the early 2000s, you had the self-service model where the tableaus came in and they started giving you the ability to bring in data, drag and drop, and create reports and dashboards. That was still on-prem. And then later part of the second half of the first decade of 2000s, 2008 and 9, we started having these self-service applications being made available on the cloud. And then we started having very interesting things happening. The cost of doing analytics was going down because the cost of infrastructure was going down over time. People were able to bring in more data. And then there were newer architectures like the Hadoop and HDFS and all these distributed file systems, columnar storage, different types of technologies that kind of came in at a point where it became interesting, not just from storing, even from a processing perspective, it was more affordable. And then you had tools that made this process even easier. So if you are someone who did not have data within your remit, you had these tools that made it easy. On the other hand, if you're a power user, these tools made it even more faster and accelerated the process of getting to insights for people who were experts. So that was a nice convergence that was happening. But clearly, there was always a gap when it came to the data being conducive for analysis. So that was all a IT intensive, developer oriented work. You had to bring in data. But now that's changed. So 2017 and 18, there's actually self-service data preparation tools. So these tools, they bring in the data and then they give you a data quality report and say, hey, you know what? You may want to look at this column because this has holes. Oh, you want to look at this column, the pricing column, because one column has a dollar notation, one row has dollar notation inserted, the other one doesn't. Might look simple, but then these are all the challenges that any data set would have because it is all data input, manual entry, or multiple systems poking in using APIs. So here's the deal. There's another angle to this. So on one hand, you had 100 users using it, and you have 1,000 APIs hitting the same system, updating the data, and then everybody's doing their own thing when they update the data, right? So it just has become so much more difficult in an API-driven world that you have a lot more information that needs cleaning and cleansing and preparation and so on. So the self-service data preparation tools are basically making it easy for people who do not have this whole, let's say, an IT team to clean the data. These tools automatically help you. Again, that's where AI is also helping these tools to be more functional.
Yeah, even if you're using even Chat GPT 4.0, I'm not really as good with Google tools, but if you're using Chat GPT 4.0 or Claude's new stuff, which is just mind blowing, the cleaning of data being checking for its organization, its labeling, making sure it's in the right places, those tools are just becoming astonishingly good.
They are. And then again, just imagine the possibilities. Like even after almost 25 years of self-service tools and moving from crystal reports to the Tableaus and Qlik's and Zoho Analytics of the world, you still are, as far as the data preparation stage is concerned, I think AI can do so much in that particular space. And then just imagine having 10 years from now, we'll probably be having a very different conversation about how easy it has become to cleanse data and how easy it has become to people to get to insight. Yes, with AI, there is this war on infrastructure, war on computing resources and everything. We haven't fully yet seen the potential of an enterprise that is insights driven. There are some departments within an organization that are insights driven, but then any large organization, there is still so much of data and it's a daunting effort, right? And who has access to what information?
Yeah. And we promised we would make this a commercial, but I think I wanted to talk about this in terms of Zoho. You've got your own integrated system
Yeah.
and an analytics built into it. And the vision of that, if I've got it right from our earlier conversations, is to make an enterprise be driven by analytics and insights. Are you seeing that with your customers? Are you seeing examples where you go, wow, that's working?
100, I have stats to prove that. As you know, Jim, Zoho makes business applications. We have over 55 business applications, right? When I say 55 applications, I'm not talking about modules. We make tools for sales teams. We make multiple tools for marketing. For example, when you look at marketing, you have email marketing, you have social media management, and you have website creation, all these things. So all of these are products that we make when it comes to marketing. So if you look at the multi-channel way of doing things in the world, customer service is multi-channel, marketing is multi-channel, sales is multi-channel. So we have tools for multiple channels of everything that the business does. So clearly it kind of grows up and then it becomes this organization that makes 55 plus application for sales, marketing, finance, HR, custom application development. And then the BI, the business intelligence or the analytics piece comes in naturally because we make so many tools that are actually systems of records. And we also give the users the ability to subscribe to these services standalone, or we have this bundle called the Zoho One bundle, which includes all the applications that we make. Now, what we have seen, the number one used app, and again, we have over 50,000 customers globally who are using this application. The number one used app is CRM. The number two app is analytics. The reason is the plumbing is done automatically. So you have a CRM system in Zoho One, you start using it. All that you need to do be insights driven is enable the analytics app. The minute you do it, it's going to introspect the environment and say, hey, you already have a CRM. I'm going to import and create the reports and dashboards for this data set. You're not even thinking. All that you need to do is a radio button or checkbox that says enable or disable analytics. So when that happens, and when they see the information that they get to, the usage increases. And then they're like, okay, let me also try using their finance app. And then the information from finance app comes in, the CRM app comes in, and then it says, oh, there is actually the customer information in my CRM is connected to my customer information in my finance system. Automatically create a blended model. And then what do you see? I mean, you're looking at, okay, which customers of mine in my CRM have pending invoices, right? Now, just take this particular insight. As a CRM user, I'm in there. I'm like, oh, I have these 5 companies, which are my top 5 companies or top 3 companies that I need to ping because they're up for their renewal, and they have not yet paid their invoices. So what does it allow me to do to take action? As an account manager, I'm just going to love the fact that my system tells me I need to call A, B, and C rather than me looking into those creating filters and doing reports. No, everything is baked in. The data is blended. The reports are automatically given to you.
Yeah, and whether you do it with a universal system like yours or whatever, I think the success factor comes from, and because we toss around this data cleanliness thing, for the most part, agreeing on what you call things and having a standard across your organization is probably one of the biggest strong points you can have in data. So that you once you've got that solid, at least you know what you're looking at. We tend to call it data cleanliness. I think there's different elements to it. Is the data wrong, or do I actually understand it? So that there's a whole part of understanding and standardizing it. And I've watched large companies with multiple systems who've spent a lot of time making sure that we agree on what we call things, and they've gotten tremendous benefits.
Absolutely. Just imagine the element of collaboration that's being built into these tools, these be it this data management tool or the reporting analytics tool. It really helps you to converge because previously it was not possible. You literally had to have stakeholders from every team. You need to have had these meetings and then going back and forth. Here, you basically create something and say, okay, here's what has been drafted. take a look. Does the data look good to you, Jim? Does it look good to you, LSP? Does it look good to you, John? And then if they say, hey, I have these tweaks to be done, immediately the point is it's a closed loop that gets executed. This whole rigor around collaboration and doing it in real time with the practitioner is so important. And I think that's where these tools are getting us to.
Yeah, and you've hit on another point, and I've had this in an earlier discussion we've had. If people are using the data, the cleanliness of the data, the accuracy of the data improves. It's just,
Absolutely.
trying to do this in a vacuum and establish it. We'll have some meetings. We'll talk about it. You can try that if you like.
We all know it's going to go nowhere. And again, and also if you look at the way the last 25 years have been, be it education, be it kids coming out of colleges, they all have data within their remit because everybody is equipped. Okay, my kid is 9 years old. He watches at YouTube and he tells me how popular this is based on the number of likes and subscribes and shares. Like, they are looking at data straight away. Just imagine that effect is there. They are fed data, they are fed insights. And then for him to come and tell me, I say, who's this guy? Oh, you don't know him? He has so many subscribers. He basically reels out the stats of a channel to tell me, don't worry, this is good content, right? And I'm not watching something that's absurd. So I'm not watching a one-off video from some guy who made it. So it's amazing.
You started out talking about this and saying that you're looking at the outcomes that you have from data. It's the same. It was the same thing when I was a kid. We'd have people who say, I'm no good at math. And I was a bit of a keener in school. No, but people would say they're no good at math. And I talk to them about baseball or hockey stats. And I go, you're great at math. You just have to want to use it. You have to have some outcome. And I think that's another piece that we need to get past is this. We tend to think of data as a process or a thing you do instead of the outcome you can get from it.
Absolutely. Again, something that we touched upon earlier, which is, why are you doing this? Why do you want to do all this analysis in the first place? Because I want to get insight that's going to help me to take actions. Now, that's what I call the whole outcome piece, because I want this to make me or push me to make a decision, or rather not make a decision in the sense, maybe I'm giving away too much in discounts, right? Maybe you should stop it, right? Whatever it is, it needs to push me towards an action that gives me a positive business outcome.
Yeah, I created, and I have the temerity to have created this acronym KPIs, which not KPIs, knowledge that will predict or influence. And
Wow.
so if I know it, I either can predict something or I can influence it. And I toss that around as a way of saying, we do this for a purpose. And my own feeling is that if you get people to have some success at solving a problem, and this should be a lesson for anybody who's out there telling their company they should use data, find a problem and solve it with the data, and you will convince people at the basics of it.
Oh, it's a high. The minute you get there, it's a high, Jim. I mean, like, just imagine having done that in the past and having had the ability to feel the pulse because I'm following some stats. It's such a fine feeling. And you know what I'm talking about. You've been there, right? It's such a fine feeling. And one of the other challenges I see with data and insights today is it's locked up in ivory towers. Okay, what do I mean by that? Not everybody who is facing the customer end of the business has access to the information for them to make decisions. Most of them have dashboards that are locked up for the executive level people, but they're looking at it from a strategic perspective. But let's say the customer support agent, let's say I'm receiving a call from Jim, and Jim is not happy with a product that we make. And you call me, I'm trying to placate you and everything. That's one thing, right? I'm being empathetic. But if I know Jim has been a customer with me for the last 5 years, and Jim has spent so much with me. I'm just going to be able to say, Jim, it's on us. The next 3 months, I'm going to waive your subscription. We really value your loyalty. And we want to show you that this is just not some kind of compensation, but we really feel bad that you have been affected because of this downtime or whatever. Just imagine me being able to do that. The front line of an organization being empowered with data. Even if you have good data, is it even reaching the people who are making decisions for you on a daily basis? That is again a problem.
Again, it goes back to that lesson of if people are using the data, they'll make it more accurate. So if you're a manager or you're a CEO of a business, you're complaining that you're not getting accurate data. It's because those people aren't using the data for themselves.
And the more you push, the more you democratize data, the better it is going to become over time.
Yeah, good point. As we wrap this up, tell me, are there places where you've looked at people and said, these are the things that people are doing right? When you meet clients, you talk to somebody, what are the things, the signs that you say, man, you're getting it? What are those things that you find?
It starts with something very simple. I'll take our own examples of the products that we make. So all our products have reporting. Let's say if you look at CRM, just with the CRM data, there is reporting. And then when we start seeing people start using, what happens is over time, the system now starts making suggestions. Again, the better the data into these systems, the system starts predicting, Jim, you're having a customer from the real estate industry. The best time to contact him or her is 11:30 a.m. on a Wednesday or Friday at 2 p.m. And then we see this, and then we get to see our customers getting excited. Hey, we actually saw that Zia, which is Zoho's intelligence assistant, is suggesting that I should call my customer at this time. This was so cool. And you have taken into consideration my data. You're not just inhaling from the host somewhere and then coming and giving me suggestions. You're reading my CRM data and you're telling me I should do this. I mean, like that's one thing. And then what we also see is as we see those reporting capabilities being utilized more, the minute they start enabling Zoho analytics, we know that they're at a point in their business where they want to monitor things in their business. So those are very encouraging signs. And as a company, right, one more thing that we're doing is because we have this analytics engine and framework, we try to bring it in context of every business application to a reasonable extent. So you don't have to necessarily go to a business intelligence tool. We are providing it out of the box in the context of the product. So we don't even, again, to answer your question, what are the signs that we see? We see that by making all these things available, we're making them insights driven because they don't have to look to external systems to go and get that. So as a vendor, we are seeing and we are thinking, how do we make it available? And that's your perspective that we also have about AI. Now, why am I bringing that? It's the philosophy that we have behind it. We strongly believe in that the best AI is when the user doesn't realize that this is AI. How do we make it ubiquitous? That's what we're doing right now with analytics, right? These reports and dashboards are available in all the products that we make. But the next step is using this information, what insights can we bubble up and say, go take an action. Your sales is dropping, your pipeline, the bottom end of the funnel is shrinking. Do something. So that's the way we are thinking about it. It's basically pushing all this analytics capability in the product and then doing more with it.
And I think you said it, the best AI, the best analytics are when people aren't thinking it's analytics, when they're thinking about the outcome. It sounds like a nuance, but it's not. Find a problem that somebody needs solved and help them solve it.
Yes.
Now, I want to just, before we wrap up, I want to talk about at smaller businesses. Now, I know you serve all levels. You serve enterprise and smaller businesses. What are the challenges that the smaller customers are facing in doing analytics? Are they particularly different than large companies?
I think two things. The challenge that we see in smaller businesses is they work a lot in their business and they don't have much time to work on their business. It is natural. if my job is to make the best coffee and I'm using all the tools that Zoho gives me, I'm waiting for that creative moment where I have that amazing blend that I'm going to make, right? And I'm not necessarily going to be focusing on the 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 day-to-day process, because you're still at a point. Again, this is probably a scenario in a startup, and then giving where basically they're more interested in their product market fit and so on and so forth. The other thing, so that's with a very small business, or 2 or 3 people company. Only when they come to a point of 10 or 15 people, they then start thinking about working on their business, because there are more people, there are more processes that they require, and then they want to start tracking it. Until then, it's Excels, it's emails, it's Word documents, right? That again, the most popular analytics tool that we're still trying to displace, and we will still be trying to displace 20 years from now, would be Excel.
Betty Ford, who used to be married to Ronald Reagan, said it best: just say no. The spreadsheet is like crack cocaine. It's so easy to use, but I can't count the number of hours people have lost or mistakes they've made, and
Mhm.
they're famous
Yeah.
from taking stuff and putting it into spreadsheets.
That's where we find the challenge too. We have our own productivity suite of software, Zoho Sheets. People start using it. I mean, it's useful, but again, small businesses, they only have so much time. All right, it's a question of time and resource, really. People and resource, people and time. These are the two resources that constrain, and the discipline to capture data is not as much in a smaller company, unless you are someone who is very educated when it comes to business intelligence or something like that. You're not going to, again, even if you are, there's only so much you can push people, right? Because they're trying to get their jobs done. And if you say, I need you to enter the process information, I need you to put everything in the system, it is hard. It is hard. But again, there is so much that they would benefit if they do it, because it's right there that they have their competitive advantage. Because you have information, start looking at it.
You need a certain volume of transactions, and I get that. And like, there's no point in having a CRM if you have 5 customers,
Yep.
if you can keep
Right.
that in your head. But when you get 50, now we're starting to talk about it. We have a little business in my local town here. It's an ice cream store. It's called the River Cone, and you go there to buy ice cream.
Mhm.
Those people can tell you the time of day that people are going to buy things. They can tell you the margin they're going to make on everything, and straight through. And the reason I focused on that was, even in a small business like that, these are important. I once had a prof in business who was teaching us about franchising, and he says, when you run a successful franchise, you know the cost per cup. And I think we give small businesses a pass because we don't think they need the data. I think we might discover that they need it probably more than in many other companies.
Oh,
But
I would agree. I would agree. Again, having that kind of knowledge and pulse of your business means you're managing your cash flow, which is the lifeline for a small business. Knowing your cash flow and knowing it on a daily basis, knowing it on an hourly basis if you can at that point, because systems are already tracking it. The point is, are you using it? Because, for example, let's say the Zoho book system, it does all these things. You raise an invoice, the minute it gets paid, you basically get it captured, whether somebody's tapping it, whether somebody is paying you Interact, whatever. The accounts payable, the accounts receivable, everything is tracked. These systems are automatically creating these reports, your cash flow reports, your P&Ls, and everything is being done. You know, don't think of it as, this is for my June 30th filing, I just need to hand it over to my accountant. Just look into it. You're going to find so many amazing nuggets of wisdom from right there.
yeah, which I think is a good second rule, even for a small business. It's trying to capture that data at the time of the transaction, or when the data comes in, and do it once. And
Yeah,
if you can do that successfully, then the work goes out of collecting it, and the accuracy increases. And those are, I
absolutely.
think, two good things even any small business should be looking at if they're looking at things for their business, to say, can I capture the data once? Can I capture it in real time? And can I have some tools that help me work on it so I don't have to transfer it out to a spreadsheet and mess it up.
Interestingly enough, though, Jim, you'll find this interesting. In my own experience with the data team, the analytics part, we find that businesses that run e-commerces, they are pretty data driven because everything is collected by design. They don't have to spend. So because you're making the order, so there's an inventory management system, and then the inventory feeds into the commerce website. The sale is made, a checkout is done, and everything is captured. Every signal of this is captured, and then it goes into analytics system or within the e-commerce system. They just tend to be more data driven. Again, for a small business, let's say I'm talking about retail business, but generally, and you mentioned ice cream company, but I'm fascinated that they know the margins by the hour, because I'm thinking of a local ice cream company myself. I'm thinking, do they know this? That's where my head is at.
Yeah. Well, the person I met, Monica, she used to work for Microsoft. They opened this. So they are high tech, but not with a hell of an investment. They just thought their way through it. They knew that technology could do this, and knowledge of data would help them run the business better. And that tells them whether they open for breakfast, whether that's a profitable thing to do, or should they open at 11?
Do I need more vanillas on a Friday versus more strawberries on a Saturday? I mean, just imagine it get to that level. It's fascinating.
Yeah. To some extent, every business is a data business. I think is one of the lessons I've learned.
Every business is a data business, especially now that you do everything online, right? The other pet topic for me now has become how cybersecurity has become important for every business, whether you are I think this is probably a prelude to our next conversation, Jim.
Our next conversation, yeah, we'll be on this. So we promised that we would have a discussion about this. I hope we fulfilled that. Before we let you go, though, what from your position, you see a lot of different companies. What are the 2 or 3 things that people should remember from this discussion, or that they should take as they try to embrace getting data in their organization?
I think it's just one piece of advice or one piece of input that I would make here is this whole data analytics, insights, and action. It's a iterative loop. It keeps on. You have to first think about the data that you want to get in, make it conducive for analysis, because the more you start doing it, the better it gets over time. And the better it gets, you get better insights. The better insights you have faster time to take actions on your business. I mean, initially it might be analysis paralysis, but very soon you'll break that pattern, and you're going to make decisions for your business that are going to be so satisfying and so fulfilling.
And we talked about passion. I'm not going to be able to edit this out of the sound, but now you're pounding the table. That's the advice: is use it or lose it. Make it work. Good for you.
Yes, sir.
Chandrasekhar, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. And we're going to have another conversation. We'll talk about data security down the road.
Likewise. Thank you very much, Jim, for having me on the show.
And that's our show for today. My guest today has been Chandrasekhar LSP, and you can call him LSP. He won't be offended, as we affectionately know him. He's the managing director for Zoho Canada. And thanks for joining him and I on this show. Thanks to all of you. We know you got lots of things you could be doing with your weekend, and you've spent part of that with us. So we hope you enjoyed the discussion, and we hope you took something away from it. #Trending goes to air daily with a news program. We're on summer hours, so we have 3 daily news podcasts until September, but we also have that and a weekend interview show we call creatively the Weekend Edition. And you can get us anywhere you get podcasts: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, you name it, we're there, including an experimental video format where you get to see my epic wardrobe, which is brought to you courtesy of stuff I never throw out. Show notes and links to the recordings are at technewsday.ca or .com, you pick. And we love your comments. So write to me at editorial@technewsday.ca. I'm your host, Jim Love. Have a great weekend.